Yeah, that's right. It's another episode of Hit or Quit. We're back, celebronauts. We're here to talk about the penultimate hour of Stars on Mars, which featured a very special rescue mission. And you'd have to call the rescue mission in for me if this woman didn't want to show up for the Stars on Mars podcast. It's the co-host of Hit or Quit, Jenny Autumn.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Daddy's home. Daddy,
Shaddy
baby.
Daddy, who we had debated whether or not he was even
Didn't I
involved with the
call it?
production in any way. I thought they just bought cameos from him, and
Yeah.
ultimately, no, Shaddy Daddy is here.
Now, here's the thing. He is here. He was live in the flesh in this episode. That does not mean that the majority of the little messages that we got from him throughout the season weren't still recorded in the same afternoon.
Oh,
That
sure,
might have been,
sure,
I think that he might have still only had 3 days of work
yeah.
on this show.
But look, we will not complain about William Shatner here. I
Absolutely
think
not.
William Shatner is in his 90s.
Yes, which is he looks insanely good, and his
92.
what is his regimen? Like, I need to know what he does at all. Like, I would if I were one of the celebronauts,
Good
and
genes or good docs?
exactly. Like, I need to know if he comes in. I'm spending every minute finding out what he eats, what his routine is, skincare, because this man is not giving 90s to me. He just isn't. It's wild. So that is what I would be using my time in the hab with Shaddy Daddy. I need to
Okay.
know.
All right. So it was a one last mission here before we get to our final episode. Sad to say, Marshawn Lynch ultimately was
Yeah.
the person to go home. We will talk all of that through. Jenny, can you believe we are only 1 week away from Stars on Mars being over?
It's I feel like we've been covering this show for a while. Like, it's been like the whole summer.
It's so bizarre because I feel like Claim to Fame just started. Can't believe it's
Yes.
over. Stars on Mars, I think, started 3 weeks before. I feel like that it's been on for a year.
Like, months and months. I feel like this has been all of 2023. And that's not really necessarily a knock on Stars on Mars. I think it's just like it just
But
feels like
kind of.
this is like a little bit. I will say, look at us. We're finishing a show.
Yeah.
Like,
We're gonna
I
finish
feel
the
like
show.
it's been a while. It's
Look,
been a while.
we
Since
stayed with
finished
it.
the
Look,
show.
Stars on Mars, certainly, and we could give like a little bit of like the 1 week early eulogy for Stars on Mars. I think that Stars on Mars brought camp. We love that.
Yes.
That's a signature of like any Rob and Jenny show. Can't take
We
yourself
need
too
camp.
seriously.
Yes.
It's got to be bringing the camp. It's got to be bringing the fun. But I think that like what we learned is like we do kind of like a game. And a game that like we kind of understand like
Stakes.
what the objective is.
Yes. Yeah, we want to know that there's a purpose, and there's some sort of competition that makes sense or meaning. And I would like challenges if there's challenges, for them at least to be watchable.
Right.
Which, I feel like at times Stars on Mars did not deliver on that front.
No. So not a
But
perfect show, Stars on Mars.
I think if you're like weighing it against some of the other things that we've done, like, you can understand why we saw this one through. It was doing enough in all of those areas. I still don't understand what the point of this is, and what they win.
You're talking about this podcast or Stars on Mars?
Oh. Yeah, I'm having a real like existential moment for this podcast. It's like, what are we doing here?
We cover weird reality shows. Like, I guess it's sort of like a little bit of like a rodeo where it's like, what's the worst a reality show can be before we have to turn it off?
Yeah. Let's see how bumpy the ride can get until we get bucked right off.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm just glad that we saw this through, because I know that it can, part of the perils of Hit or Quit here is like,
we took that 1 week off, Jenny, and people were like, "Oh, I guess you're out on Stars on Mars."
Well, here's the thing. We pissed a lot of people off when we quit Farmer Wants a Wife. Listen, I saw like 3 angry reviews of people that were just mad that we stopped
Oh, we
covering
got
stuff.
angry Apple Podcast reviews?
Yeah, just
All
and
right,
like
well,
I can't believe
then we need positive. Then we need to
we need to balance it out.
right. Okay, balance out the Apple Podcast feed. Go to robinswebsite.com/hit or quit feed.
Yeah.
And robinswebsite.com/hit or quit feed for that, because we need your help now.
Yeah, and these are a little while ago, but listen, we got to drown those complaints down because look we finished a show and this show is better than Farmer Wants a Wife.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I had a good enough time with this. It was funny. It was a light and easy watch for the most part.
Yeah.
But I think I'm ready to see it through.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that we will ever see, I mean, the crazy thing is that like I never thought that we would see Special Forces: World's Toughest Test ever again. I thought that was absolutely never, ever, ever going to happen again. And here we are. We're gonna get a season 2 of that. Do you think? Because there was a talk in this episode of Stars of Mars for the next people that come, and we can obviously elaborate on that.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Will we see a season 2 of Stars on Mars?
Well, I wonder if the Special Forces: World's Toughest Test, I think it got really big ratings its first night, and I wonder if maybe it got like a easy green light, and maybe that the people over at Fox knew that there was some like writers' strike issues on the like horizon, and certainly actors' strike issues on the horizon. So maybe that was like an easy yes for Special Forces: World's Toughest Test. Like, I don't know what the budget was on that show. I can't imagine it was like so much. I mean, like, what did they do? They got like helicopters once in a while.
Yeah, and the rest of the time,
how much does poison gas cost?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know how much all of that stuff is worth, but in terms of like a set, it was bare bones. It was like they were on cots. Whereas like Stars on Mars, like, I mean, I feel like
it was a bigger budget on Stars on Mars.
Definitely a bigger budget. First of all, you got to pay for William Shatner alone. I feel like that's probably a decent.
How much is Bill Billingsley's quote?
I can't imagine it's as much as the Shatty Daddy. But I'm sure it went up. I'm sure he got a raise for season 2. But like the hab is like pretty high tech looking. Like the set seems a lot more elaborate. So I think the budget is probably a little bit higher. But like maybe now that they've established this, wherever this is, hanging out in Australia, are they saying, well, we've got this built now, like we just need to pay some new celeb.
They've already got it ready to go. And I also feel like that based on in this episode, they told the celebronauts, hey, it's Mother's Day. Which means that the ending of filming of this was approximately like 2 weeks before it went on the air. Is that right, Jenny?
It must be, because when did we start this? Early June?
It was the first week of June. So I think
that's wild.
That this was like a really quick turnaround. So it seems like a kind of show where they can like get a season out quick if they need to. Yeah,
and that's impressive to me because I feel like, it's pretty well produced. There's some things that I've quibbled with, but that I think it's really, really, the fact that it was like 2 weeks of filming and then like 2 weeks later it was already starting to air. Like they would have had to do some quick work on putting this together. But I'm glad that we finally got a marker for when this was, because I felt like there was like a lot, the very fact that all of like the Scandival stuff was like being discussed. I was like, that felt like that just happened. How is this being talked about on the show? Well, it just turns out that this was literally only filmed like a month before it started airing. So that cleared that up.
Okay. So I'm just trying to see what the ratings are. I think the ratings have not been super strong for Stars on Mars. And the ratings are down to 0.82 million viewers for this episode of Stars on Mars last night. It was up against the 3-hour Bachelorette finale.
Yeah. And okay, So I don't understand how to read ratings. So I never look at ratings because it's literally like reading math. To me, I don't understand it. But
Yeah.
unless someone says this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
um,
So let me
but
just tell
I
you
feel like
what it was on up against.
okay,
Okay.
okay,
And just so,
yeah.
all right. So at 8 o'clock on Monday night, The Bachelorette had that had the biggest rating. 3 million people were watching the hour one of The Bachelorette. Okay.
And that's just like, that's brand recognition
Yeah.
there. Like that's not
Over
that is a
on
more quality show.
CBS, okay, The Neighborhood, 2.65 million people were watching an episode of The Neighborhood.
Okay.
On NBC, 3.13 million people were watching American Ninja Warrior.
Oh. I mean, was Taryn watching it? Because I feel like Taryn might have been watching something else. I think Taryn was watching
Mhm.
Feats last night. Maybe he had it
Yeah,
on in the background just to give them the
right.
view.
And then ultimately, something on the CW called "Son of a Critch" was
Oh, that's
on,
a Canadian show.
and it was got 0.4
Why
million
is that
viewers.
on the
So,
CW?
Stars on Mars is doubling the audience of "Son of a Critch" at this point.
I would hope so. That is like literally a Canadian show. I think it's set in Newfoundland. My one of my best friends, Critch is not a very common last name. One of my best friends is from Newfoundland, and her last name is Critch. So I always think,
Yeah, "Son
but
of a
why is
Critch."
it on CW?
I don't know. It's a very popular series in Canada, allegedly,
It's
according to Jenny,
Canadian for
and
sure, isn't
also,
it? Yes.
from the executive producer of Schitt's Creek, he's 11 going on 70. It's like a young Sheldon.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Um,
People are like, we came
with
to hear the
CW just
stars on Mars come.
no. We're just
Nobody's
talking.
saying that. I don't know. We're just vibing. Okay, but I was just giving you
This
some
is a
sense of
vibes podcast.
yeah, is there going to be more stars on Mars? That's the conversation we're having right now. Is there
Yes.
going to be stars on Mars season 2? And then
I feel like if they have nothing else coming down the hopper.
right, right. Then I will say then for Fox, then at 9 o'clock, Master Chef, which is celebrating its 250th episode, then had worse ratings. So I don't
Oh.
know, but it was at 9 o'clock.
It's summer, it's late summer. I just like, are people watching a ton of TV? Is Monday not the right night? I don't know. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
I hope that, because having Claim to Fame and Stars on Mars on at the same time, like that was tricky. I
Hmm.
didn't enjoy that. So if it
Yeah.
comes back, maybe like, I don't know, test drive another night. Like
Yeah.
maybe Monday, if there's always gonna be a Bachelor franchise, because Bachelor's on like 365 days a year. Like it does not take
Yeah.
any time
So
off.
I think it's worthwhile to talk about like could Stars on Mars season 2 maybe be salvaged in some ways. We can continue to talk about that over the next 2 weeks. We will talk about the finale coming up next week, although the Claim to
Mhm.
Fame finale is also going to be Monday night. So maybe we get to the Stars on Mars finale maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, listen, Claim to Fame is taking precedence, okay?
Yeah.
I think everyone is way more on the edge of their seat to find out which of the 4 remaining people win that show than deciding who wins.
We'll do power rankings. We'll do it. Okay.
We will. We
All
should.
right. Jenny, we're down to our final 5 here
Mhm.
on Mars, or actually, it was the final 6 to start off this episode.
So,
And
yeah.
so, we start to see people are starting to like gear up towards the end of their journey. As you mentioned, people are going to start to leave some stuff behind. Anything notable that you felt like that the celebronauts were leaving behind?
Yeah, so this was okay. So we get the announcement that we knew about, that there's no more base commander and everyone's going to participate in all the missions. And so they get given an activity that was supposed to be a duty, and they need to do a show and tell where they each grab an item and show the rest of them what they're leaving behind, because I guess this is the thing, astronauts
Yeah.
leave their mark in space. um and so we go around the circle and everyone shows off their item. It was very elementary school, and except for, I'm pretty sure, what did Marshawn have, like an empty bottle of Henny? Like, that was Hennessy, right?
I love Marshawn Lynch so much.
He's the best.
I'm glad he made it 11 episodes into Stars on Mars because I feel like that he was a big part of the charm of the show.
Absolutely. Like, I don't know if I could have kept going, um, if he had gone as early as, like, Richard Sherman did.
Hmm.
Um, because he was just always giving us some sort of moments. We're looking for the weird, the wacky, the absurd on these shows, and if we don't have that, what are we doing? So Marshawn
Right.
was, like, MVP of giving us moments. And
You
and
know
you
what?
know,
He
he
was the MVP of the whole show.
he really was. He really was. So I'm glad that if we're only going to go one episode without him. And for all we know, maybe there is some sort of component uh from the extracted celebronauts in the finale. We don't know. I didn't
Maybe.
expect Shaddy Daddy to show up in the penultimate episode, so here we are. Anyway, Marshawn, I'm almost positive I'm looking up like a picture of a Hennessy bottle to get the shape right. I think what he was holding up was an almost empty Hennessy bottle. And I think they're like, is that empty? And he said, I'm gonna leave them a swallow. So I guess there's just like
Yeah.
the last little bits of
For
Henny
the
in a
future
bottle.
celebronauts. Yeah.
I hope that it was never like drank straight out of the bottle, because to
Hmm.
me that bottom bit is all backwash.
Yeah, but I feel like, does the alcohol kill anything bad?
That's a good question. I don't know science, but I guess it just depends on like how much alcohol ag versus like bacteria in someone's saliva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get some of our listeners to help us out with
Yeah,
that
can you let
with
us
that
know?
question.
Like, I think it probably depends on when you take the swig. Like, if it was an early
What's the
drink
proof?
and
Right.
then the rest of the alcohol like took its time and dealt with
Hmm.
it. But like if Marshawn had just like taken a sip and then just left a tiny little bit left, I feel like that bottom bit is probably
I
still
hear you.
gross.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
I don't know. Where did they get the Hennessy?
I think that they probably gave Marshawn whatever he wanted just to not leave the
Yeah,
hab
please
and
stay.
stick it out
Please
for
stay.
17 days.
Yeah.
So we saw a little bit of Marshawn and Portia. They had such an interesting relationship all
Yeah.
through the show. I like he called her his like his bougie aunt.
Yeah, he says Portia's like his bougie auntie, and but then like Portia later in the episode calls him like her baby brother. So it's like it's just definitely some sort of
Hmm.
familial relationship. I this was the first time that Marshawn actually says like I really like Portia. She's cool. Because like he's like that person that like is always kind of like ribbing you. And so it's like you don't know if that's like his love language or if like he doesn't like you. And
Hmm.
it seems now that we've gotten the confirmation that he really does like Portia, which I assumed that was the case. But it's nice to get that confirmation, because sometimes when somebody's all jokes, you sometimes don't know like how they truly feel. Like if that person is just constantly speaking in like sarcasm font, you don't
Hmm.
know their true
Yeah.
feelings.
He doesn't break character, Marshawn.
No, no. He's there for fun.
Hmm.
And I think that he doesn't show his vulnerable side too much. But
Hmm.
it's there. It's there.
Yeah. All right. So we also get announcement that there's going to be no more base commander, no
Yep.
more mission specialist. Okay. Things are going to be different here in the home stretch. The game has changed.
Yes. And that would make sense, because at what point like you can't get down there needed to be a different structure to
Hmm.
get the last few people and to determine who the brightest star in the galaxy was going to be. So
Right.
and I mean it's still unclear what's going to happen at the very very end. It seems kind of like a final immunity challenge type thing, but whatever this challenge is more about splitting. We got 6 people left. We're going to split them into 2, and there's basically going to be a safe team and an unsafe team. And
Hmm.
that's how we're moving forward for this next extraction.
Yeah. So in today's episode, we got the word. Okay, they need to go on a rescue mission. Now, you and I said last week if it was the rad dog that needed to be rescued, we weren't even going to do a
You aren't going to
podcast.
come
So
back.
if
Yeah,
you are listening to the podcast, you know it was not the rad
it
dog.
was
So they
not
had to
the
go
rad
out
dog.
and split up into 2 teams to end up doing this mission. And the teams end up being, interestingly, not the big three.
Yes.
Not
And
the
I feel
not the trio of ultimately Adam and Portia and Tinashe.
yes, and we get, the build up that these three are very close. They're all always talking about each other and how they're very close. But I think it was actually Tinashe who speaks up and made the initial teams and said, "Me, Portia, Marshawn, and then Kat, Paul, and Adam." Kat seems very excited about this team, and so that basically
Mhm.
locks it in. So I don't know. At this point they didn't know that it was going to be one team would be safe from extraction and the other one would be up for it. So perhaps if they had known that information ahead of time, maybe Tinashe, Portia, and Adam, but maybe that was strategic. Maybe she was thinking,
Yeah, what if they
hey,
win?
if all three of us lose, then one of us is going for sure. So maybe that was strategy on Tinashe's part, being like, hey, that could be what happened, and this is the best way to ensure that all three of us stay. But it didn't seem like they really knew how this was going to play out. You just had to divide yourself into two teams.
Jenny, as we're talking through the strengths and weaknesses of Stars on Mars, I think that we both agree on then the biggest weakness of Stars on Mars happens to be the tasks that
Yeah.
are often not the most exciting things. In this episode, the teams had to find satellites, and then the satellites had to be put in order based on the planets. And
Mhm.
I feel like that the tasks that were like maybe a little bit more interesting were sort of like when Marshawn Lynch had the flamethrower.
Yes.
That maybe there was like something that was like a little bit more exciting. I felt like that rearranging the satellites was a little bit not super interesting.
Not super interesting, but I will give them credit in that they didn't make it take too long, because this went by pretty quickly. Like, the task itself was not very long. And we got a lot more of, like, and it happened pretty early in the episode, to the point where I was like, "Oh, is that it? That's just the task. It's done."
Hmm.
So, yes, not super interesting to watch people carry heavy satellites and put them in a line, but it was simple,
Yeah.
and it didn't take too much time, because there was going to be a lot more implications of, because normally, like, the missions happen in the middle part of the episode and go pretty far into the end of the episode, and then the last, like, 5 or 10 minutes is just deciding who is Mish Crit and then who's going. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, the post challenge stuff was a lot more, like, important today. So at least they got it over with kind of quickly. And I will say I like the graphics. I appreciate that they use graphics on the screen to, like,
Hmm.
because again, how the hell would I be able to keep track of who is making better progress in lining up the satellites in the right order? And they had a little, like, graphic in the bottom where it was showing, like, where they were in, like, getting them set up, so you could see who was in the lead and stuff. I'm like, at least they're trying.
Hmm.
I'm a visual person. I need to see some sort of indication of who's winning or losing, because otherwise, why do I care? What's going on? Just tell me who wins.
Yeah, I thought that also I appreciated all of the shout outs to Blues Clues.
Yes.
Got a lot of love today.
It's a big week for Blue's Clues. I'm pretty sure
With
Mike
Blue
Bloom
getting
made
so many clues about
yeah, I think Mike Bloom,
that was a great tweet. It took me a day to hit me. I'm
yeah,
like, oh yeah, like it's literally
yeah.
Blues Clues.
Blue's Clues. So it's
Hmm.
this is the most I've heard about Blue's Clues in the last, like, 10 years at least.
Yeah.
There's lots of shouts to Blue's Clues
What's that,
being
Blue? What's that? Do you see something? Okay, there's a female
so
that has something.
no. Can you tell me how many bodies?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, yes. The celestial bodies, how many are in the solar system? Too many.
Count them
That's
in
just my
order. Too
preference,
many to
though. Yeah.
count.
Too many to count. Okay.
Oh god.
So, yeah, we get the team, ultimately the Cat and Paul and Adam team ultimately is gonna be the winner of the challenge.
Yes.
And they
And
get to
yeah.
the rescue, and we see who it is. and it was a sort of out of focus William
Yeah, a
Shatner,
blurry
William Shatner.
Shatty
Now,
Daddy.
this occurred to me after I watched the scene. Was William Shatner wearing a spacesuit?
No, that was the thing. He was just wearing his leather jacket and his pants, and they were like, "Wait,
Now,
why aren't you? Can you
yeah,
breathe?"
yes, and
Bit of a
we
hole
just
in the logic here.
a little bit of the hole in the logic of
There's
like
a few
all season
actually.
long. It was like, you can't go outside without your spacesuit on. We just dropped it for William Shatner. Couldn't we have like William Shatner's stunt double in the suit and then takes off the helmet to reveal, like, shh, it's
The other
me,
I'm here
Shatty Daddy. I'm here
in the flesh.
in the
Um,
flesh.
one of the really funny things, and this is how I distinctly remember that he was not wearing a helmet, is when they pull up to him, there's like flies all over his face. Like
Mhm.
like they kept on like landing on his face,
It
and I
seems
was
like it's
like,
very buggy out on the surface of Mars.
Yeah, I don't know how for whatever reason the bugs in Mars, they're doing
Yes.
just fine.
Marshawn Lynch said there were hella roaches out here.
Yeah, which I who knew
Who
there's
knew?
flies, there's roaches, and all sorts of
Mhm.
bugs in Mars. So
Yeah.
and then they just put him in. I love when they get him into the rover because he's like, okay, Adam, I'm gonna take your spot because Adam was in like shotgun. And then like instead of sitting like a normal person in the rover, Shaddy Daddy like kind of like reclines himself back with his legs hanging out the front of the
Mhm.
rover.
Yeah. Again, 92.
Yeah, maybe he's just that's easier on his bones, I guess, to like not
Bones.
have to squeeze his.
Did you did you say bones? Yeah. All right. Anyway, so they get him back to the hab and he's like holding court, Shatner.
Yeah. This is he's the true base commander. Like, he does, and also he didn't have to do contamination
No,
for
he just
some
walked
reason.
in and then he's
He
like,
just
"Where's
walks
everybody?"
in.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then he was like the like I was like, "I thought somebody passed gas."
He's never been here. He doesn't know all these
He doesn't
noises.
know. He
But
doesn't
for
know how
whatever
the hab
reason,
works.
doesn't need to be contaminated, doesn't need a suit. I don't understand, but
Yeah, he even did for everybody like they were lined up in like height order. He's like, "Thank you for lining up in height order for me."
yes, he seemed when they were in the like the decontamination part before he entered, he was like to Paul, he's like, "You're much taller than I expected." And then turns to Adam, "You're much smaller than I expected." And then
Mhm.
turns to Kat and says, "And you're just right." Like it was true Goldilocks.
Yeah, I mean, he's really I mean, again, for 92, like, he's pretty,
That's
quick with it, so
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. Like he was burning people, like he was
yeah.
roasting, like
Look,
he's
if they
sharp.
could get more Shatner in a, Stars on Mars season 2, like, I think that that is definitely a win for the
Yeah.
show. Like, could they
You
get him,
can't do
like,
it without
living in the
him.
hab, like, out there on location rather than
Yeah.
just, like, phoning it in? And not to
That
say
would
he
be
phoned it
great.
in, but, like, just, like,
He
on
kind of did
Zoom?
phone himself in.
Yeah, yeah. Or even like I don't even mind him being on Zoom, but like mixing it up a little bit more. So like, that his transmission, like he can't like communicate with them one on one. Like even like if he was like on Zoom, like chopping it up with them a little bit. Like I think that
Yes.
that would be fun.
The interactions, because he's really good at feeding off of the things that they say and do.
Hmm.
Let him cook,
Let
like
him
let
cook.
the man cook.
Yeah. Okay.
Just forget Kakora. I want to see Shaddy Daddy cook.
Right. Right. All right, Jenny, you have to explain to me, and
Oh
you
boy.
do it so well.
Oh no.
What was going on with the other three people? Of that, there wasn't enough oxygen on the
The
rover. They
story
needed to
just kept
camp, and
changing.
then from camp, then they needed to send somebody back, and then there was enough oxygen that they could walk back.
It was so confusing. Okay, so obviously Team A wins. They are the ones with the strong satellite signal.
They're
They find
Mishkrit.
Shaddy. They rescue him. The
Shatner did
other
refer to, or the computer referred to him as Shaddy
Shaddy
Daddy.
Daddy.
Also,
Yeah, she said,
yes.
"Welcome, Commander, Galactic Legend, aka Shaddy Daddy." Like that is canon
That's
now.
me.
Like that's him. And so the other rover, because even though they were seconds behind, had a weak signal, and so they go into like a totally different direction. And then they run out of oxygen. I have a hair in my mouth. Ugh. There we go.
Oh, no.
I don't know what happened. I was like, I couldn't get through a sentence with it because it was gonna get deep into my throat and we were gonna have a real problem.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so they're low on oxygen, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, you don't have enough, you're an hour and a half away from the hab and your oxygen is depleting. So here's a capsule with enough oxygen to have you stay overnight, and there's a supply pod that has essentials that are critical to survival. So it's a tent, and then there's like cots, and so they had to like erect this tent, which apparently was trouble. They had erectile dysfunction for a little bit there.
Yeah, Martian's
suddenly,
like, just give it a minute. Just give it a minute.
Yeah, just give it a little talk.
Anyway. He didn't say that. He didn't say that.
Sorry, I should not report things that are not true. This is my journalistic integrity is on the line here.
He said, just wait.
just wait. So they finally get into the tent, which looked like one of those like
look pretty cool.
Like I've talked about this before. They're like those like wine like these were really big in COVID lockdown times of like these clear like octagonal, is that what
yeah,
they look like you could have like a nice classy meal in there with some little twinkly lights, you know?
Yeah, I liked it.
It was cool. And so, but there were apparently roaches. I don't know if that was true, but Marchand said there were hella roaches.
I believe him.
So then the story at this point is that they are going to stay overnight there. But then all of a sudden they get a transmission on like, they had like a little computer or like an iPad type thing. And then they get a transmission from Shatner that says, okay, terrible news. Actually, there's only enough oxygen for 2 of you to stay overnight here. So one of you has to make a mad dash back to the hab tonight using the rover's single supplemental oxygen. And then and basically that person that heads back to the hab is essentially mission critical and is safe from extraction. Then it's the remaining 2 that stay overnight in the tent that will face extraction by the crew in the morning. So they're basically told like, you're staying overnight here, and they don't explain to them what happens next. They just basically say like, the remaining 2 will face extraction by the crew in the morning. The story was confusing.
Yeah, and I didn't think that there was that much fighting going on for basically like, okay, who's gonna like take guaranteed immunity? It was like, oh, Tinashe's like, I'll do it.
Well, so what I thought was, and this is why Marchand is so confusing. Like, you have to know him to like know when he's kind of just like effing with you, because he's like, all right, I'm going, like, I'm the like, you're gonna go, Portia, like, I'm the fastest, I'm gonna get there the fastest. And she's like, okay, well, Marchand, you're gonna go, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna go. It's like he just went from saying, I'm like, oh, Marchand's gonna push for this, like he's gonna say I'm gonna go, and then Portia's like, okay, so you're gonna go, and he's like, no, are you gonna go? You should go. And she said, hell no. And so these 2 are basically arguing about not going, which I'm like, going means you're safe. What do you mean you're arguing? And then Marchand says, no, I can't do it, and then turns to Tinashe and says, okay, Tinashe, go ahead, go get your tacos. Which there's all this talk about tacos, because Marchand was like, if I don't come back, you'll know I ate your tacos. I'm like, what?
I think they must have told him there was tacos at the hab.
It was Tuesday, I guess. It was Taco Tuesday.
I'm beginning to think, methinks they might be lying about the rations at the hab.
Right. Yeah. I think it was Taco Tuesday and they were getting ready for it. And so that might have been the one reason that Marchand was excited.
Turned out it was Tinashe Tuesday.
Yes, it was. And here's the thing. So finally, Marchand's like, Tinashe, you go ahead and get your tacos. She immediately gets up. She's like, all right, I did know the planets, because she was the MVP. She was out. And I loved that, like, they acknowledged it. They're like, oh my God, I've never seen you get dressed so fast. Like, see you later. Like, as soon as they gave her the permission, she's like, peace.
Yeah. And then it was just Portia and Marchand that got left. And then they made it seem like in the morning, like they were just kind of like left for dead. And Portia's like, Marchand, I think we could do this.
Yes. Again, I don't understand how they make this
I think
decision.
a producer was like, okay, now walk back.
Yeah, so, like, someone had to tip them off because I think maybe at a certain point, they're like, "Okay, yeah, actually, like, you have to figure out getting yourself
Yeah,
back."
and Marshawn wanted to
Um,
sleep in. He didn't wanna go.
yeah, because it started the sun started to rise. Portia still looked perfect, which was baffling to me because I was like, "She must not have slept, right?" Like,
Mhm.
did she wear the helmet to bed so that, like, her makeup stayed perfect? I didn't understand how she could have slept and still
Oh,
look that
that's a
perfect.
good trick for people who have to early wake up calls that do your makeup at
Just
nighttime, put a helmet on, and then go to
yes.
sleep.
Wear your space suit to bed,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm,
everything will be perfect when you wake up. That's
mhm.
what I need to do if I have a morning podcast, I guess. I need to get a nice space helmet to sleep
That's
in.
what I do.
But yeah, Portia's just like, "Okay, we're gonna walk back. Like, let's just take the oxygen we have left. No one's coming to rescue us." To be fair, I don't know if they ever told them anyone was coming to rescue them. It was just very confusing.
Yeah.
But I thought, like, is something gonna go wrong here because they're kind of taking it upon themselves to just go back? And I like, they didn't tell them to do that. But no, they just arrive and it's like, oh, crew incoming. I'm like, okay, I guess they were supposed to do that. Like, it's just very weird, like, narrative.
Mhm, and they get back, and then there has to have a vote of, okay, who is Mish Crit out of Marshawn and Portia?
Yeah.
And, yeah, I thought this was, like, a little bit of, like, an interesting vote. Of course, I guess you had Adam and Tinashe. Okay, you knew what they were going to vote for. They were gonna vote to
Yeah.
keep, Portia. The vote that I thought was interesting was that I would have thought that Kat would have
Yeah.
voted to keep Marshawn, but Kat voted to keep Portia. And it's sort of like, I have to, you know what? I have to do what is right for my, the person who is going to be, good for the hab and
It was
picks Wild.
okay, but I understand it from, like, if she was paying attention to, like, what do I think, like, what I think is the most fair. Like, if I'm trying to, like, answer this honestly. But we got all these confessionals about her being like, "I
I
like,
want to
I'm gonna
win.
do what's best for me, and, like, I'm gonna make a hard decision on, like, what's gonna benefit me." And
Yeah.
so I'm like, "Okay," because at this point, it's 2 votes Portia, 1 vote Marshawn because Paul votes for Marshawn to stay because
Hmm.
he basically like, "Who gives a shit about plants? This guy is gonna keep me alive."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I say, "Paul, none of you are dying at any point out here.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
not gonna happen." But okay. So, it seemed like we were set up for Kat to tie it here
Yeah.
because she should, if she's trying to, give herself the best chance of winning, even though they don't really know how you win this game. But if there's a strong three, and then her and Paul, and she feels like they've got Marshawn more, then I would think she'd be voting in a way to give the biggest chance of getting Portia out here. Now, there's only 4 of them. What would have happened, Rob, if Kat did say, "I'm voting for Marshawn"? Because then
Couple
we're tied
things,
to
I
is it
guess.
Shaddy?
So, one,
Shaddy
is it
tiebreak?
possible that the tiebreak goes into, okay, well, it's tie vote now, one of you is up for nomination? Like, is one of you
Ooh,
is gonna
we're
go
drawing
home? Is there, like,
rocks?
some sort of, like, are you going to
Space
rock? So
rocks?
maybe that's a
Yeah,
reason why Kat was like, "I have to make the hard decision
can't risk
and
it.
I can't risk it." Maybe that's it, or maybe
They should
Kat
warn
thinks
them.
yeah, if that would seem like a pretty big part of the show that they wouldn't tell
Yeah.
us about. Or maybe number 2, maybe Kat thinks that there is going to be some sort of like physical component to the final challenge where maybe she
Mm.
thinks it's going to be like some sort of like tough as nails type final obstacle course that's going to determine the winner, and that maybe she felt like, okay, well, I can't beat Marshawn in this very physical final grueling leg of this, so I'm going to send Marshawn home.
Yeah, and to be fair, if that's what she's thinking, because again, we don't know, and I don't think they know how they get down to a winner after 5. So, but if she's banking on like, okay, we're gonna get to a point where votes don't matter, or we're down to so few people that it's not about like votes, or I'm not even going to be in contention to be extracted if I win something. And if it becomes a truly, even though this was team still, if we're getting down to 5, maybe it becomes more individual and it's like individual immunity. And she thinks, hey, I'm a tough lady and I have a better chance of winning something without Marshawn here. Then
Mhm.
that would make sense. But we don't get any explanation from her about why that was what her decision was. We get so much of like, we get Tinashe being like, Kat seems like the kind of person that is going to like try to win at all costs. And like she's being built up as like this, like she's gonna do whatever it takes. And
Yeah.
she but why was this the decision? Because there's a lot of reasons I would think that maybe that wouldn't have been her decision. I would love to have gotten
Yeah.
that explained to
Well,
us. But
Jenny, all right, let's talk it through now. Okay, so down to our final 5. Next week is going to
yep.
be the finale, and let's talk through who do we think is going to be the winner of Stars on Mars? Because we've talked about that the edit has been pretty even. I think that we
Hmm.
can both agree the least likely person to be the brightest star in the galaxy is Paul. I would
Yes.
say almost no chance
Paul,
for Paul.
yes. Paul, and I would be pissed if
It's not
Paul
Paul.
wins.
It's not Paul. Okay. But
Yeah.
I do think that there is a reasonable argument to make for the
Yeah.
other 4 people. You and I had most recently talked about, the trio, Adam,
Hmm.
Tinashe, Portia potentially being the winners, but we haven't really entertained the idea of Kat Cora being the winner. And I'm starting to think it's a very realistic possibility.
Especially now that, we saw the preview for next week that makes it look like there is some sort. Now, I think we go from 5 to 3. I think they made it sound like there's something they do first that reduces them from 5 to 3, and then I'm guessing the 3 is like a final challenge because there was like some sort of thing like whoever gets their communications blah 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 first is the brightest star in the galaxy. So if Kat can get herself into a thing where there's only 3 of them left and there's some sort of like literal mission, I think she's got a really good chance. Especially
Yeah.
like depending on who she's next to. If there's a physical component, she seems pretty physical. So it's tough because I think that she definitely has a chance, and we're getting so much material about her being in it to win it. And like her biggest problem up to this point being that like she came in late and didn't have alliances. But if the story is that like at the very end alliances mean nothing and it's just about proving yourself, then like I can see the edit making sense that Kat wins. Although I'm kind of like, ugh,
Mhm.
annoying if it's someone that comes in late.
Yeah. So I'm also trying to see if she has anything else coming up with Fox where they,
Mm,
not to say that there is any sort of
ooh,
like rigging going on, but I do feel like that the Fox is very much in like the network of cooking shows. And so
yes.
I do think that that there could be potentially something that's going to be going on. I'm also seeing a trailer for The Real Dirty Dancing. Did that already happen?
Pardon? What the what?
The Real Dirty Dancing, is that a show that's already been on?
I've never heard of this in my entire life, Rob.
Yeah.
Is it like The Real
Let's
Love Boat? Is that
see.
the thing we're taking like old media and then like turning
Oh,
it
that already
into a
aired. That
reality
already aired.
show?
That was, yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
that we should that was
We
a
missed that one, I guess.
yes, it was in our Joe Millionaire days. Anyway,
Oh,
was
those were
Cat
the
Cora
days.
on that? I don't know. Anyway, so I'm trying to think that I think Cat Cora is going to win this thing.
So that's your pick.
That's not my who I'm rooting for, but
Yeah, that's
I'm trying
your
to think that maybe that's why we've had such a, the edgic might be a little bit off.
yes. And I definitely can see that. It would make sense from a narrative perspective. And also I just think that she seems pretty capable. Um
Right. I don't know
I
if she's
will
coming on for a
say
deep dive with us.
no, probably not.
Mhm.
I mean, I wasn't mean, but I don't think I was like,
We were upset with the Andy Richter thing.
yeah, that
Andy Richter,
Andy
yeah,
was done dirty.
yeah.
Um, I think if okay, just to pick someone different, so that we have different choices here for our winner. I'm gonna say maybe Adam wins.
Okay. All right, we'll see. But Tinashe
I
or Portia
worry.
win, very much in the realm of possibility. So there's some
So
intrigue
yeah,
going into the final episode.
here's the thing. I feel like Tinashe and Portia have been very, very solid throughout this. I actually noticed or realized while watching this episode that Tinashe is the only person left that has never been in the bottom 3.
Mm-hmm.
Never been up for extraction. She's always been mission critical.
Always miss
But
crit.
if we get into a situation where it's like a race and it's
Mm-hmm.
that might not matter. She might have been just doing really good all the time, but not good enough to beat somebody if it's like a physical competition or something. She's very small framed. I can't imagine how it is to do any of this stuff in those suits. I would be Ariel in the suit. I'd be falling over. I'd be tipping over. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
walking into walls. Like, I can't walk in my normal suit, my skin suit, you know? I take corners.
Skin suit.
I take corners too sharp, Rob, like all the time. I'm constantly bumping my shoulder into things. Like, I have no concept of where I am and what I'm doing. Put me in that freaking suit. I am taking everyone out. I'm taking myself out. Like, I would probably be medically evacuated from this show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That we got to see a great send off to at Money Lynch. That on Twitter you could follow him. He is at Money Lynch. His
Got a
Twitter
movie coming
bio
out.
is he has a movie coming out.
Yeah, Bottoms. I think it comes
Yes.
out this Friday. I think maybe in the States, but I
Okay.
think it doesn't come out until next week in Canada because I've been waiting to see it.
His Twitter quote is simply "I'm yo daddy."
That's what he said. This was so we had these little montages.
IYD.
Yes, that's what. So we had the montage of both Marshawn and Portia before the vote. It was nice. We got the little package of like, look at their journey, and one of the things I noted from the montage, because I forgot about it, but it was really funny, was when the first week when Marshawn was our base commander, he goes, "I'm your IYD commander," and then they said, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "I'm your daddy." So this is a thing he's taken. I don't know if this is something he said before Stars on Mars, or if this is something he's taken away and now it's
I
a
think
thing.
that's his catchphrase, and I think that he's
You think
brought it to
so?
Mars.
He's been saying that. I'm gonna have to check into this after. If you are
And
a
William Shatner
Marshawn
might adopt
stan,
the "I'm yo Shatty Daddy."
yes.
Okay.
Which
All
I
right,
love
Jenny.
him. Yeah.
Stars on Mars is going to be back with the finale next
Mhm.
week, and we will be there to talk about who is the brightest star in the galaxy.
Yes. And I can't wait. I will say, I feel like, we are the brightest stars in the Stars on Mars podcasting galaxy.
Yes, the
It's a
only
pretty
people to
empty
podcast
galaxy,
the entire
but
show. We're ready for our deep dives and post-game
let's
exit
go.
press at the end of this thing. Of course, we could use your ratings and reviews. Go to robswebsite.com/hit-or-quit feed. Jenny and I will also be back on Monday night to recap the 2-hour finale of Claim to Fame, which
Chappelle
has
and
gotten a
Mari
little more
joining us.
attention. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's gonna
Chappelle
be really
and Mari
fun.
joining
Yeah.
us to talk about the finale of another game that could be anybody's win to have coming up on Monday. Jenny and I also got together to do the slop on Monday. That's a patron exclusive show. And it was a real high point of the Big Brother season for me so far, because we had so much fun
I had a
going
great
through
time.
everything on the slop. If you love hearing from Jenny and I, you will not be disappointed with this week's edition of the slop. Special shout out to Cassidy. She's mother to me, but not Cassidy from Survivor. Joined us for some special games and some fun stories as well.
Yes.
So check that out over in the Patreon podcast feed. Too spicy for the main podcast feed.
Yeah, we gotta put that behind the paywall.
Got to.
We get sloppy. Listen, I take it very seriously, Rob. Like, if I know that the point is to be sloppy, I'm bringing it. I will give the slop.
Yes.
And so I feel like it was extra sloppy last night in a
we
good way.
For our hit or quit fans, we uncovered the link to the MILF Manor multiverse that might be uncovered. So much more. Sam, you were looking for a clip maybe from the slot. Maybe that's it. All right. Then, Jenny, what else is coming up for you?
Basically, you've said it. Just waiting to see the end of these 2 shows next week, and we're gonna cruise into fall, and I don't know what's next for Hit or Quit. Is it buddy games? We buddy gaming? I've only seen the one commercial. It
We
looks
got to check it out.
terrible. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
in the very least, we will see that coming because I think that premieres September
It seems like people are getting hit in the
14th.
groin, so that's,
Love
that's our
that. We
wheelhouse.
love a good nut shot.
All
Anyway, on
right.
that note,
On
follow
that
me
note.
on social media at Jenny Autumn, and
At
we'll be
Jenny
back
Autumn.
next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for some Stars on Mars coverage. We'll see you after the finale next week on Hit or Quit. Take care. Have a good one.